Welcome to Attention Talk Video, where we pay attention to attention. Now, here's your host, Jeff Copper.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of Attention Talk Video. I'm cognitive engineer and ADHD coach, Jeff Copper. Yes, cognitive engineer and ADHD coach. The cognitive engineer is a result of the new paradigm that I put together called cognitive ergonomics from the inside out. It's a new way of engineering accommodations for people with ADHD. They're more adaptive as opposed to compensatory. More on that in other videos kind of coming. Today, I want to talk about ADHD and motivation. And I'm going to be doing a lot about this in the coming weeks and months. I'm working on a new construct, a new way of looking at motivation. And quite honestly, it's derived from fundamentals from Dr. Russell Barkley's construct around ADHD being executive functioning impairment and the brain being a two-level system. When we introduce two-level system, we bring in two competing motivational forces, and it gets kind of exciting. So just know that the title of this is ADHD Motivation Part 1. The other parts are not going to be sequential, but I'll be talking more about it. What I really want to talk about today is motivation is this internal force that impacts us. And that's why we do what we do. And I will argue that they're both born out of emotion. One is the emotional urge to seek comfort and escape discomfort. And the other is the emotional urge for achievement. Okay, emotional urge for achievement. Now, both of these are really kind of natural phenomena, right? Urges are a strong desire. If you scratch yourself, that's an urge to escape the discomfort and seek the comfort of scratching yourself. If you change positions in bed at night, you're doing that because you're uncomfortable at some point and you're changing positions to seek comfort. A lot of times you might go have a drink or do something as a reward, okay? But fundamentally, your primary primitive urges are really based off of your desire to seek pleasure, to escape discomfort. Whereas the thinking brain is, again, more running on emotions for achievement, but those are impacted by the amount of effort that's required sometimes in order to achieve that. And so one of the things that there's a slight difference here is that people confuse motivation with emotional pressure. Let's talk about that. So a deadline would be emotional pressure. You got to do this because of the pressure of the deadline. For some of you out there with ADHD, deadlines, that amount of pressure doesn't do anything for you. Others, it helps. In other videos, I'll talk about tangible misattribution, about how the deadline looks like it's the reason you're getting it done, but it's actually some other intangible things that are getting done. But the point really is emotional pressure is kind of like somebody else is putting pressure on you, or you're trying to put your pressure on yourself to do something that you wouldn't ordinarily do. That's a form of willpower, of just pushing your way through it. I've already done a video on ADHD and willpower, and my point really is that it's really not a sustainable long-term strategy. So you would say, well, you're doing two videos seemingly on the same topic. Well, one of them is just to really get the crowd that's talking about willpower, but other ones coming over here is the emotion that I'm talking about is the ability or the things that you do that are based off of an urge, again, to seek pleasure, escape discomfort, or achievement, with the ability to make that achievement because the situational variability is conducive and you're drawn to something that is you're passionate about. I've always been passionate about ahas. That's what my aha bob is all about here. I've always been drawn to some of that, and because of that, I'm able to endure a little bit of discomfort sometimes to do these videos for you to think through what I'm going to do. But that is a kind of an inborn emotion. We think of a lot of times is reward as being an emotion to get our emotions there. And it can be short term, but it's typically not sustainable. Where I'm going with this is again, a lot of motivation. It's not so much emotional, it's really situational. And we're going to be talking about a lot more about that, some of these variables. And so I would encourage you to kind of shift your mindset of thinking that it's really about getting psyched up and willpower over time. Now, as a swimmer, I used to try to get psyched up before an event the night before, and I actually did a show many years ago with a Broadway actor, and we talked about how I would try, after I'd been swimming for a long time, it got hard to get psyched up for meets. And then he would talk about how he'd done Phantom of the Opera like 1,200 times. How do you get psyched up to go on stage and not daydream? But needless to say is that people mistake motivation as this emotional thing. It is emotional, but it's not a willpower emotion. It's a natural kind of emotion, right? More on this a little bit later. Again, new construct, excited about what we're going to be bringing to you. If you're new to our channel, please hit the subscribe button. If you're an existing listener, leave us a comment. Also, if you become a new subscriber, you'll see the new videos that we're coming out on motivation relatively soon. So with that, I hope this is giving you pause to think. We'll catch you next week for another great edition of Attention Talk Video. Take care.